Let me tell you about a woman named Amara. She was a financial analyst. She read fine print for a living. And somehow, the one man she trusted most never let her read his. That was his first mistake. His last one was handing her a pen. There are women who carry themselves like they have something to prove. Amara was not one of them. She carried herself like a woman who had already proven it and simply moved on. She was 29 years old, a financial analyst at a mid-sized city firm, known for being precise. Her eyes watched everything without appearing to watch anything at all, a habit built from years of auditing numbers. Or maybe she had always been that way. Her mother said she came out of the womb looking like she was reading a contract. She was good at her job. Her colleagues called her careful. Her family called her thoughtful. Her fiancé called her his good luck. His name was Tunde. Tunde was the kind of man who made a room lean in his direction when he entered it. Tall, well-spoken, with a voice that moved at exactly the right pace. Never rushed, never uncertain. He was building a logistics company, and it was growing. He spoke about business with a conviction Amara had found genuinely attractive because she respected ambition. He called her brilliant in front of people. He told her she had changed his life. He held her hand at dinners in a way that felt protective, not possessive, and Amara had always known the difference. She had believed him. Tomorrow, they were getting married. The house was the way a family home becomes when a wedding is 24 hours away, beautifully, overwhelmingly chaotic. Her mother's sisters had arrived with bags of food and more opinions than anyone had asked for. 3 cousins argued in the corridor about the bridesmaid dresses. Someone had packed the serving bowls in the venue car by mistake, and a small emergency was in progress. The air smelled of jollof rice, lavender, and too much of somebody's perfume. Amara sat on her childhood bed with the door half open, fingers resting on the white bedspread, going over nothing in particular. Her wedding dress hung on the wardrobe door like a waiting promise. She had looked at it 3 times already, and each time it made her stomach do something. Not quite nerves, not quite joy. Something in between. The way you feel standing at the edge of a decision you cannot undo. Kemi came in without knocking. She always did. Kemi was her closest friend from university, loyal and bossy in equal measure. She sat beside Amara and studied her face the way a doctor looks at a patient before a verdict. "You've been sitting here too long," Kemi said. Amara smiled. "I'm resting. You can rest when you're on the other side of tomorrow. Right now you should be doing something romantic." She produced a small printed receipt. "His assistant called me earlier. There's a folder of post-wedding business filings Tunde needs. Ownership transfer documents, registration updates. He's at the Grand Palais Hotel tonight. Take them. Bring that bottle of wine you've been hiding. Show up unannounced. He'll love it." Amara looked at her sideways. "You want me to show up at my groom's hotel the night before my wedding? I want you to act like a woman in love. You're always so composed. Surprise him for once." Amara was tired. Her feet had been aching since noon. She looked at the folder, then at her wedding dress. Then she stood up. "1 hour," she said. "Back before 10. Kemi smiled. "That's my girl." The Grand Palais Hotel was past the junction with the blue signpost and across from the new glass office complex. Amara arrived by taxi, folder under her arm and wine in a bag, and walked into the warm lobby with no reason in the world to feel worried. The receptionist looked up. "Good evening. I'm here for Mr. Tunde." The receptionist typed, then looked up with the carefully neutral expression trained for delivering unwelcome information. "Yes, he's in suite 714. A pause. He requested no interruptions. "A late business meeting." "Of course," Amara said. "I'll just drop this at his door." She took the elevator. The 7th floor was quiet. The carpet was deep red and muffled everything. She passed 710, past 712, and stopped outside 714. She could hear his voice. She almost knocked. She almost smiled. And then she heard what he was actually saying. He was not on a call. He was speaking to someone inside the room. Another man's voice, low and unhurried. Tunde's words came through the door with the ease of a man who felt entirely safe. The loan applications went through on her credentials. She signed the authorization forms back in March without asking what they were. "I told her it was routine company paperwork. After the wedding it becomes joint by law, joint assets, joint liability. If any investors come looking, the name on the primary documents is hers, not mine. Clean." A pause. The other voice. "She has no idea?" Tunde laughed. Short. Comfortable. "She's a financial analyst. Can you believe it? She knows exactly what a forged signature looks like on someone else's documents. She just never thought to look at her own. Amara's hand went completely still. She did not move. She did not breathe loudly. She stood with her back against the corridor wall and let what she had heard sit inside her chest like cold water. And then, with the same precision she brought to every audit, she reached into her bag, found her phone, opened the voice recorder, and pressed the red button. She stood there for 4 minutes and 50 seconds. She did not cry in the hallway. She saved that for later, for a private place, a discipline she had always had and had never needed quite so badly as tonight. She backed away from the door the way you back away from something dangerous, slowly, carefully, without turning. In the elevator, the door slid shut. She stood in the small mirrored box and looked at herself. The folder was still under her arm. The wine was still in the bag. Her face was the same face she had walked in with. Inside, something precise and very cold had begun to move. In the taxi home, she watched the streetlights blur past and thought about every document she had signed at Tunde's request over the past 8 months. Every introduction she had made for him. Every door she had opened with her name, her credentials, her family's reputation. She thought about the wedding dress on the wardrobe door. She thought about the marriage license in the white envelope on her desk. They wanted a signature. Fine. Tomorrow, they would get one. But it would not be hers. Amara did not sleep that night. Not because she was crying, though she did cry, briefly, sitting on the bathroom floor with the tap running so no one would hear. She allowed herself 7 minutes. Then she washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror, and went to work. She opened her laptop at the kitchen table at 11:15 while the house slept off the excitement of tomorrow's wedding, and she went through everything. She had always kept copies. That was the thing about being precise. You kept copies. Old emails. Scanned documents. A desktop folder she had labeled T, business docs, because he had sent things to hold on to, and she had held them without realizing she was building an archive. She found the March forms within 20 minutes. She had signed them believing they were standard registration updates. He had circled the signature lines in red and told her, with a tired smile, that his lawyer needed them for filing deadlines. She had signed because she trusted him. She had not read them because she trusted him. That was the part that sat like a splinter, not the fraud itself, but the precise, careful way he had used her trust as a tool. The documents tied 3 loan agreements to her identity as a named financial guarantor. Total borrowed, for 0.2 million naira across 2 lending institutions. Her signature on each one. Her BVN on the application forms. In the eyes of the law, she had consented to all of it. She called Barrister Fola. Barrister Fola Shade Adeyemi was not a lawyer you called at midnight for small problems, which is why Amara had her number saved. When she answered on the 3rd ring with a cautious hello, Amara did not apologize for the time. I need you to listen to something. Then I need your honest professional opinion. She played the recording. For seconds of silence followed. Then Fola said quietly, "How long before the wedding?" 9 hours. Don't confront him. Don't cancel anything publicly yet. Do exactly what I tell you, and do it tonight. They worked until 2 in the morning. Amara, Fola, and Uncle Emeka, her father's old friend in financial regulation, on a 3-way call, building a case the way careful people build things, methodically, without rushing, checking every joint before moving to the next. The plan was clean, not theatrical, not destructive for its own sake. The marriage license required signatures from both parties and 2 witnesses to become legally binding. A document of similar weight and format, a notarist written confession acknowledging forged signatures, fraudulent loan agreements, and full criminal and financial liability, could be made to look nearly identical. If he signs it in front of witnesses, Fola said, it becomes legally actionable. An admission, unprompted, uncoerced, in front of a full congregation. Amara considered this. And if he reads it first? He won't. No cruelty in Fola's voice, just the practiced certainty of someone who knew how men like Tunde operated. He believes you trust him completely. He will sign because he thinks it's the marriage license, and because your trust makes him feel invincible. Amara looked at the wedding dress on the wardrobe door. Draft it, she said. By 4 in the morning the document was ready, printed on legal weight paper, notarist, sealed inside a white envelope. Amara wrote marriage license on the front in her own handwriting. She set it beside her bridal shoes, folded her hands in her lap, and waited for morning. The morning of a wedding is its own particular kind of chaos. Amara moved through hers like a woman with somewhere else entirely to be. The makeup artist arrived at 6. Her mother hovered with small sounds of approval and anxiety. Her aunties filled the room with advice on everything from veil angles to the wisdom of marrying outside their village. Her youngest cousin cried at the sight of her in the dress, which set off 2 aunties, which set off her mother. And Amara stood in the center of it all, eyes open to protect the eyeliner, feeling one thing only, a low, steady calm. She looked beautiful. The dress was ivory and fitted, chosen 4 months ago when she had believed in all of this, and she saw no reason to let what she now knew take that away. Fola arrived at 8:30, dressed as a wedding guest, warm, cheerful, complimentary about the decor. She found Amara's eye once across the room and gave a small nod. The 2 witnesses were already in position. Uncle Emeka, who had a gift for looking like he was simply enjoying the open bar, was seated in the 3rd row, aisle side. The envelope was in Amara's bridal bag. The church was full. Tun's family arrived loud and celebratory. His business associates occupied a row near the front. Men in well-cut agbatas who smiled with the easy confidence of people who had already invested in someone's future. Amara walked down the aisle to music she had chosen herself, spine straight, eyes forward, no visible evidence of the storm behind them. Tund was waiting at the altar. He was dressed in white and gold, and he watched her with an expression she could no longer read now that she knew what she knew. It didn't matter. She noted it the way you note a fact in a file and kept walking. He leaned close as she reached him. "You look incredible." "Thank you, Tund. I keep telling people you're the reason everything in my life works." He adjusted slightly for the photographer. "My good luck. My foundation. You know that, right?" "I know." He squeezed her hand. "Thank you for always trusting me." Amara looked at him steadily. "Of course," she said. The ceremony began. The pastor spoke about covenant. The congregation sang. Someone's baby cried and was shushed and started again. 2 of Tun's aunties were already weeping. To everyone in that room, this was the beginning of a very happy marriage. Then the pastor spread his hands and smiled at them both. "And now, please present the marriage license for signing." Amara opened her bridal bag. The signing table stood to the left of the altar, white cloth, silver pin holder, chosen by his mother for the photographs. Amara set the envelope on the table and stepped back. Tund picked it up, turned it once in his hands without really looking at it, slid the document halfway out, and glanced at it for perhaps 2 seconds. "Looks good," he said, and someone in the front row laughed softly. He reached for the pen. One of his groomsmen leaned over. "Oga, you should read it." "Oh." Tund laughed. The same short, comfortable laugh she had heard through a hotel door the night before, now translated into the public register of a confident man at his own wedding. "I trust my wife already," he said. The congregation exhaled a sound of warm approval. He signed his name on the line. The pen went down. Amara looked at Fola. Fola stood. She did it without drama, walked to the front with the unhurried pace of someone who had every right to be exactly where she was going. She placed her hand on the document, and the first row went quiet before anyone else had registered that something was happening. "Good morning," Fola said to the pastor, pleasantly. "I am Barrister Folashade Adeyemi. I have been asked by my client to ensure that the document just signed is read aloud to the congregation, consistent with its terms." Tund turned. His expression moved through confusion, then a careful blankness, then something shifting behind his eyes as he looked from the document to Amara and back. Fola began to read. Her voice was measured and clear, trained to be heard across rooms where important things are decided. She read the heading first, a notarist financial confession. Then the first clause, that the signatory, Tunde Manuel, acknowledged that between January and August of the current year, loan applications had been submitted to 2 named financial institutions using the identity, credentials, and forged authorization signatures of one Amara Osei, without her knowledge or consent. The church went silent. Not the polite silence of a ceremony, the particular silence of a room where everyone has stopped breathing at the same moment. Fola continued. Second clause. The signatory acknowledged that documents bearing Amara Osei's signature had been prepared with the intention of assigning financial liability to her in the event of business failure or investor dispute. Someone in the middle rows said, very quietly, "What?" Third clause. The signatory accepted full financial and criminal responsibility for the above and waived any legal claim to joint marital assets on the basis of the fraudulent foundation on which this union had been sought. Tun's voice had a different quality now, stripped of its warmth. I didn't read. You signed it, Fola said simply, in front of 112 witnesses. Uncle Emeka stood from the third row, identified himself as a regulatory official, and requested Tund remain in the building pending a formal conversation. Two other individuals, expected by Amara, unexpected by everyone else, positioned themselves quietly at the rear exits. Tund looked at Amara. She looked back with the same steady eyes she brought to every document she had ever reviewed. She removed the engagement ring from her finger and placed it on the signing table, beside the silver pen holder his mother had chosen for the photographs. I came here to marry a partner. She picked up her bridal bag. Not a liability. She walked out the same way she had walked in, spine straight, eyes forward, every step deliberate. Behind her, the room erupted. She could hear it building as the doors swung open and the morning air came in. She did not look back. She had already read everything. There was nothing left in that room she needed to see. By evening, the story was everywhere. Weddings are public events attended by people who carry phones, and something this extraordinary could not stay inside a church for long. By 6 o'clock, 3 video clips were circulating. By 9, a hashtag was trending. By midnight, people who had never been in that church and did not know either of them were arguing about it in comment sections across 3 countries. Most of them were on Amara's side. Tun's business partners were less vocal, but the effect was the same. 2 investment meetings were quietly canceled. A partnership he had been building for 8 months stopped returning his calls. The lending institutions with forged documents on file began their own processes, and those processes moved with the slow, grinding certainty of official investigations. The company did not survive the quarter. Amara spent the first week at her mother's house sleeping, eating soup, and not looking at her phone. Her family moved through the stages of reaction the way families do: shock, then anger, then the specific fierce protectiveness that expressed itself in her aunties calling to say extremely uncharitable things about Tund, which she appreciated more than she could say. Kemi sat with her for 2 full days and never once said, "I told you so," which was the most loving thing anyone did in that entire period. She started therapy in the 3rd week. Not because she felt broken, she didn't, which surprised her, but because she was precise enough to know that what had happened required more than willpower to process. She sat across from a quiet therapist every Thursday and talked about trust, about the difference between self-blame and honest reckoning, about what it means to be careful about everything except the thing that matters most. It was useful work. Tund came 3 months later, on a weekday afternoon, unannounced, with the look of a man who had been rehearsing something. She agreed to see him, not because she feared what would happen if she didn't, but because unfinished conversations have a way of finding you, and it was better to finish this one on her own terms. He sat in her mother's living room and apologized. The apology was long and included explanations she listened to carefully without interrupting. He said he had convinced himself it wasn't as bad as it sounded, which is what people say when they know exactly how bad it sounds. He said the business pressure had made him desperate, which was perhaps even true. He said he had genuinely cared about her, which she believed in the way you believe something can be both true and entirely beside the point. When he finished, she sat quietly for a moment. "I hear you," she said, "and I forgive you, because carrying that weight is not good for me, and I won't do it." A pause. "But we are done. Fully and completely. I need you to understand that without any space for ambiguity." He nodded. He looked like a man who had expected this and come anyway, because some apologies are not about the response they'll receive. She respected that, slightly. It was different from forgiving him. It was different from trusting him. It was different from anything that could ever bring her back. He left. She made herself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table and felt, for the first time in months, entirely like herself. The platform launched 4 months after the wedding. She had been building it in the evenings, quietly, in the methodical way she built everything. She called it Read Before You Sign, a name that was obvious, maybe even blunt, but the most useful things usually are. It combined financial literacy resources with a community forum and a pro bono legal clinic supervised by FOLA, built specifically for women who had found their names, credentials, or trust weaponized without their knowledge. There were more of them than she had expected. That was both sad and motivating. Within 6 months, 17,000 registered users. Within the first year, cited in 2 national newspapers, referenced in a financial regulation guidance document that Uncle Emeka had a quiet hand in drafting. Amara was invited to speak at a women's finance conference in Abuja. She said yes. She stood at the podium before a hall full of women and told the truth, that she was a financial analyst who had nearly lost everything because she trusted someone so completely she stopped reading. That the document she had been so careful about her whole life had been sitting on her own desk, signed in her own hand, waiting to ruin her. That the only reason it hadn't was because she had chosen, in one hotel corridor on one late night, to stay calm and start thinking. Betrayal is not the end of your story, she told them. It's the chapter where you find out who you actually are. The applause lasted a long time. On the morning of what would have been her first wedding anniversary, Amara sat at her own desk in her own office. She had left the firm and gone independent, something she had wanted to do for years and hadn't, because she had been building a life around someone else's plans, and she signed the business registration documents for an expanded version of the platform. She read every word first, all 6 pages. Then she took the pen and wrote her name at the bottom, her name only, belonging to no one but herself and her future, and set the pen down and looked out the window at the city moving through its ordinary Tuesday morning. She smiled. This time, the signature belonged only to her. End.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Subscribe, like, and click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.